Amidst Formula One's turmoil, Ferrari is now facing an unexpected storm. An engineering briefing that was supposed to remain confidential has become a ticking time bomb, exposing the lies behind the results of the Hungarian Grand Prix. This leaked information is more than just a technical issue. It's the beginning of a major drama that could shake the team's very foundation. Can Ferrari weather this storm of betrayal, or will the team disintegrate from within? Let's discuss it. In Formula One, qualifying results are often considered the absolute truth. Those numbers Q1, Q2, and grid positions reflect a team's speed, skill, and decision-making abilities. But in Hungary, the P12 spot next to Lewis Hamilton's name wasn't a reflection of skill or just bad luck. It was a hidden message, signaling a battle rarely seen in public, an internal war within Ferrari. To the casual viewer, the story is predictable. Hamilton isn't as strong as he once was. Ferrari has failed to accommodate his driving style, and Charles Leclerc is now the priority. However, for those who listened to the whispers in the paddock, read the patterns behind the data, and understood the political gamesmanship at Maranello, the real story was just beginning. From the start of the Hungarian weekend, strange signs began to emerge. Typically, the energy in the Ferrari garage was tense, yet synchronized. Each team member knew their role. But this time, there was a subtle shift. Radio communications were less frequent, and technical instructions sounded more cautious. Even the crew's body language showed unusual distance. According to an inside source, what happened in Hungary wasn't a loss of pace. It was a pattern. And that pattern began long before the cars left the pit lane. The key lay in the engineer briefing, a closed room where strategy is analyzed and major decisions are made. This is where the truth first emerged. During the briefing, Hamilton didn't seem angry or frustrated. He was an experienced driver. The FP2 data showed that the setup changes he had requested, which focused specifically on rear stability under braking, had yielded positive results. However, as FP3 began, everything changed. Hamilton studied the data closely. The rear ride height was changed. The diff preload was adjusted. All the variables that had given him confidence in the car were gone. These changes were made without his confirmation or signature. In that room, he said the words that have since become legendary within the team. You ask for feedback, then ignore it when it threatens your plans. It wasn't a harsh sentence. It wasn't emotional, but that's precisely what made it so poignant. Riccardo Adami, Hamilton's race engineer, was known for fighting internally to maintain his driver's desired setup. Leclerc never requested the change. So who made the decision? The answer can only point to one thing: a higher authority. Someone in technical or strategic management overrode Hamilton's input and forced a different direction. Hamilton didn't need to shout to understand the situation. In Q2, as his car became increasingly uncontrollable during braking, he simply said over the radio, "This car won't hold up under braking." Not a complaint, it was a warning. But, as usual, the warning evaporated into thin air. In contrast, Leclerc had a seemingly perfect weekend. The car's setup remained exactly as he wanted it, stable in the front and agile in the corners without any sudden changes. From the outside, it looked as if Leclerc had found something that Hamilton hadn't. But the answer was simple. When you looked at the data, his car hadn't been touched. The difference in treatment became even more apparent on Saturday night. Hamilton requested a small adjustment to brake migration, a technically permissible change. That was crucial for braking stability on the high-brake stress Hungaroring track. Ferrari denied the request, citing setup freeze. At the same time, however, Leclerc requested a recalibration of the tire blanket, and his request was granted without debate. "The rules haven't changed," said one frustrated mechanic. "Only who's asking has changed." During the final pre-race briefing, Hamilton put an end to the pleasantries with one question that froze the entire room. "Do you want 2 cars or just 1? Silence. No one answered, not because they didn't understand, but because they understood. Too much. Riccardo Adami stared at the strategy sheet in front of him, then turned the page. It was a small movement, almost insignificant to those who didn't know. But to those who did, it was a silent declaration. He knew which side he was on. Ironically, the game began to turn on lap 43. Leclerc, who had seemingly benefited from the system, suddenly panicked over the radio. "Something's wrong with this," car. To the spectators, it looked like simple tire degradation. But in the garage, the engineers immediately identified the cause: a left rear chassis imbalance. This problem had been apparent since FP2 and had even been recorded in the internal log. Ferrari had gambled, hoping the problem wouldn't surface during the race while Leclerc was in the lead. However, as the pressure mounted, the problem could no longer be hidden. In that moment, Leclerc experienced what Hamilton had felt all along: betrayal by the system. While everyone was busy putting out political fires within the team, Riccardo Adami took a far more dangerous step. He quietly began providing Lewis Hamilton with raw data that normally underwent a rigorous filtering process under the control of the strategic hierarchy: brake balance, evolution, tire wear deltas, and details about rivals' throttle points in critical corners. All of it now went directly to Hamilton. Unfiltered. However, amid the sea of numbers and graphs, one word stood out as oddly familiar. Trust. It wasn't just a side note. It wasn't a technical analysis. It was a signal. It was a clear message of defiance, suggesting that the behind-the-scenes game had just begun. After the race, Ferrari took a step that further divided the team. For the first time all season, debrief sessions were held separately. Charles Leclerc was placed in the main room with the technical chief and top management, while Lewis Hamilton was sent to a small room with only 2 junior data engineers. Officially, the decision was described as a time-saving measure. However, everyone in the team knew the real reason was simpler and colder: isolation in that small room. However, Riccardo Adami once again demonstrated his refusal to bend to the current. Instead of delivering his usual brief report, he placed a master telemetry set on Hamilton's desk. This set contained all the raw, unfiltered data that usually circulates only within the team's highest circles. This wasn't just a show of support. For Hamilton, it was a statement. It was a silent rebellion, signaling that Ferrari's internal war had truly begun. Then, a voice emerged from outside, someone who knew Ferrari intimately: Laurent Mekies, the former Ferrari figurehead, now at Visa RB, quietly but pointedly told a French journalist, "It's not Lewis who's learning Ferrari. It's Ferrari who's learning Lewis." The phrase quickly spread through the paddock. For those familiar with Ferrari's internal history, this wasn't just an opinion. It was confirmation. Hamilton wasn't adapting to the system. He was forcing the system to adapt to him. Ultimately, P12 was just a number on the screen. Behind the scenes, profound changes were taking place. Hamilton didn't need on-camera drama to tear Ferrari apart. He did it in a more insidious way. Through raw data, the support of a single engineer, and a silence laden with meaning. What seemed like isolation turned out to be a strategy. What looked like weakness turned out to be infiltration. The cracks that once came only from the outside are now growing from within. The question now is, how long can Ferrari hold the cracks before the wall collapses? Leave your thoughts below.